Hey guys! Before we begin, I'll briefly debunk the misinformation people have in their personal lore books and answer the comments. So, some people think that vampires or vampiric horror is Slavic by origin. Firstly, if many websites and Google AI says it's Slavic, it's not necessarily true. Secondly, the knowledge could be offensive, and I'm sorry if I crush your beliefs. An early candidate for the horrific vampire creature is the Ikimu from Mesopotamian mythology. Ikimu's origin date back 4000 BC. If you played The Witcher 3, you remember that vampire as Ikima or Ikimura. These were restless spirits or reverends that returned from the dead to harm the living. They share many characteristics with later vampire legends that you can find in Slavic folklore as well. So, the concept of a bloodsucker who scares the living, both dead and alive at the same time, and has ill intentions, has been with us for more than 6,000 years. As for the word vampire, no, it's not Slavic by origin. If we look into the work of Katharina Wilson, we'll see that linguists have 4 theories which include Turkish, Greek, Hebrew, and Hungarian roots. Hungary is not a Slavic country, and their language is not Slavic. The Hungarian language is similar to Turkic languages. You can choose the point in time to consider something of your national treasure, but please respect the roots. Uber, in Turkish folklore, came to Slavic languages as the word upir, to describe a bloodsucker, while in Turkish folklore it is, first of all, a witch that died and started feeding on the living. I hope now you know a little bit more about the history of vampires in general, so let's talk about the Blood of Dawnwalker. The folklore of the Carpathian region, this is where everything happens in the game, is deeply intertwined with myths and legends about vampires, with a rich and varied tradition shaped by the cultural and historical influences of Central and Eastern Europe. Today, we'll explore what inspired lore in the Blood of Dawnwalker and compare Slavic vampires of the Carpathian area with the vampires from the game based on the recent trailer and stream event with Rebel Wolves, the developers of this video game. Why am I doing this? Well, first of all, Slavs have rich folklore, and I hope you will find it interesting. Secondly, many of us deduced that the game would be heavily influenced by Slavic folklore, and I'm afraid that this may not be the case when we talk about vampires in Dawnwalker. Vampires in the Carpathian region were often believed to be individuals who experienced an unnatural or unclean death, such as suicide, murder, or improper burial. For example, Slavic beliefs show a clear difference between the soul and the body. They thought the soul doesn't die. When a person dies, the soul leaves the body and wanders nearby for 40 days before going to the afterlife. Because of this, pagan Slavs would leave a window or door open for the soul to exit freely. During these 40 days, the soul could return to the body. It could either bless or cause trouble for the family and neighbors. Proper burial rites were very important to ensure the soul's peace as it separated from the body. If a child died unbaptized, or if a person died violently, suddenly, or as a serious sinner, the soul was thought to be unclean even after death, no matter how hard your preacher or holy father prays. As you might have noticed, there is a weird blend of paganism and Christianity. Yes, this is how it was and it is nowadays. Well, at least in the community where I grew up. The only difference is that we don't believe that vampires are real. Anyway, back to folklore. Others could become vampires due to immoral behavior in life or being cursed. Children born with certain deformities such as teeth, mouth, head, limbs, along with red heads and left-handed kids, were suspected of becoming vampires after death. A vampire is the manifestation of an unclean spirit possessing a decomposing body. This undead creature needs the blood of the living to sustain its body's existence and is vengeful and jealous towards the living. They are solitary creatures and never form a pack or a horde of vampires. Based on these beliefs, we can already say that Dawnwalker has slightly different rules. The devs said that Brancis was born in the Roman Empire to a noble family. He was destined for greatness and joined the rank of senators. He quickly rose to the top of Roman officialdom, with ambitions to become the next consul. He was on the right track, but then he was turned into a vampire. So the dude is more than 1,000 years old. He didn't die unnaturally as a sinner and then crawl out of his grave, but was turned through an in-game lore ritual that we will talk a little bit later about. Also, I don't see a single body deformity. Another confirmed piece of lore from the devs exposes how a human can be turned into a vampire.
So what primarily sets them apart is their teeth. Our vampire teeth keep growing throughout their lives. The older the vampire, the more teeth they have. So instead of two sharp teeth, they have a series of needle-like fangs, densely growing from their jaws, often emerging from different parts of their skull as they age. The teeth keep growing because the vampire can use them to create another vampire. And the mechanism is very simple. The vampire pulls out his fang and drives it into the heart of its victim.
Lovely.
So what's interesting is that our vampire's teeth aren't visible at first. They can extend as the mouth opens, and it looks really creepy.
As they said, Rebel Wolves wanted to create something fresh in the culture that has already defined vampires as a thing. However, I didn't see many similarities with the Slavic vampires. Unlike the romanticized vampires of modern media, Carpathian vampires were often described as bloated and ruddy or dark in appearance due to their feeding on blood. This contrasts with their pale, lean, attractive depiction in Western literature. Vampires in Carpathian folklore were grotesque monsters, rising from their graves to terrorize the living nearby. But in the Blood of Dawnwalker, yes, they are a little bit dark, but it could be because it's night. They are scary, yet elegant, almost godlike beings shrouded in mystery. They possess predatory moves and can perform blood magic. It seems to me the first vampires in Dawnwalker could have been either of magical origin, such as divine punishment from the gods, or some anomaly that took place thousands of years ago. We shall see, but now there are no visual or behavioral similarities with Slavic vampires. The Carpathian region is a cradle of vampire legends. Here, the undead aren't romantic anti-heroes or cunning aristocrats. They are puffy, smelly corpses, their faces reddened from drinking the blood of the living. They rise from their graves not to rule or build a society, but to spread terror among their own families and villages. Born from improper burials, suicides, or unclean deaths, they were deeply tied to the fear of disease, moral corruption, and the thin veil between life and death. Anyway, the concept in the game is super cool, and I'm not sad at all that they don't look or act like Slavic vampires. If a vampire tooth can create a newborn vampire, we can speculate that either because of saliva or calcified structure, those sharp needle-like teeth possess such power. This feature in Dawnwalker brings vampires closer to mushrooms as a species than magical creatures. The trailer showed us that vampires are supernatural beings with powers like superhuman speed, blood magic that includes healing and bursting people as if their blood boiled, shadow manipulation, and teleportation. These powers highlight their dominance over mortals, the dominance they want to use to create the world in which they thrive. Carpathian folklore teaches us that vampires primarily feed on blood and instill fear through the idea of them being among humans at night. Their abilities could focus on shape-shifting into wolves or bats and influencing victims mentally. Their powers are always limited, and it looks like they can only feed if they trick humans or scare them well enough. Carpathian vampires are rooted in local fears and superstitions, reflecting the intimate struggles of rural communities with mortality, sickness, and spiritual beliefs. Their powers mirror tangible dangers like death, uncleanliness, or betrayal. Once again, I'm not sad that Dawnwalker has strong and intelligent vampires, though it could be that we will meet some variations of lesser or weaker bloodsuckers that would portray Slavic vampires in their full, grotesque glory. Only with Christianity, which became the official religion in Poland and Ukraine in the 10th century, did the protective rituals mix with Slavic paganism. Christianity brought holy water, silver crosses, stakes, etc. to the table, while pagans believed that iron objects such as nails, spikes, or scissors had the same deadly effect. To prevent a suspected vampire from leaving the grave, the body was pinned down with iron spikes or large stones, which proved that vampires were not strong enough and even a heavy stone could hold them underground. Also, one of my favorite things, placing salt or scattering seeds around the grave could prevent a vampire from rising, as they would be forced to count the grains or seeds before leaving the grave. The battle against vampires wasn't fought by lone heroes, but by entire communities. Fear of these nocturnal monsters led to collective rituals in villages where people would exhume graves, perform ceremonies, and hold festivals to ward off evil spirits. A little dancing around a bonfire. Why not? So, fast forward to the Blood of Dawnwalker. These vampires are nothing like horrendous figures of folklore. Instead, they are creatures of power, and a pair of scissors or a festival won't stop them from tearing villagers apart. No longer solitary monsters, they are ambitious rulers, schemers, and soldiers in a complex hierarchy. It is confirmed that by saving people from the plague, they created an opportunity for themselves to build their regime and society. By manipulating mortals like pawns in their struggles for life and freedom from their landlords, they eventually didn't hide that humans were nothing but cattle. Therefore, there is nothing humans can do to the vampire rulers to drive them away or fight them. They are smarter, stronger, faster, and united. The developers said that Cohen, the main character, wouldn't be an overpowered protagonist in their game, and I'm not surprised. They make an immersive and believable setting where sunlight and silver can help you defeat vampires and monsters. Because of the silver in the game lore, it has more Christian and Western influence than Slavic folklore. But we shall see, maybe Cohen will have a pouch of salt. Even though Rebel Wolves were inspired by the region, I'm really glad that they created a new image of vampires in modern culture. Evolution is needed because trivial fears become dull with education, technology, and science. Folklore is culture, and it reflects fears of those times we live in. Fear of death is universal, along with some political oppression. New fears we know and can comprehend can change the storytelling and how we enjoy tales. Folklore vampires represented personal fears, disease, immoral behavior, so reputational problems, and death. Modern vampires are vessels for broader narratives exploring themes of power, morality, and survival. In games, this evolution provides depth. Epic RPGs thrive on moral complexity and immersive worlds. By transforming vampires into tragic, layered beings, the Blood of Dawnwalker invites us to engage with its story on a deeper level. And let's be honest, exploring a dark fantasy kingdom or challenging a supernatural enemy feels much more rewarding than chasing a bloated corpse around a graveyard. I mean, that's a job for the Witcher, not the Dawnwalker. Alright guys, let's start the discussion. What do you think about this transformation in storytelling? Do you prefer the grotesque creatures of the night from Slavic folklore or the dark elegance of modern vampires? Will we have bloated corpses as random mobs? Because I hope we will. And will there be a quest in the village where we can hold a festival to fight a wandering evil back to its grave? Let me know in the comments and stay tuned for more lore breakdowns and deep dives into the Blood of Dawnwalker. Have fun, play video games, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!